Parliament is back in session with a vengeance. The Prime Minister had a target on his back the moment he stepped in the House of Commons, where, remember, he doesn't have a majority, far from it. The majority of lawmakers, in fact, are fiercely opposed to him, and they're extremely vocal about it. Watch this, just a sample of what the Prime Minister faced in the House of Commons on Wednesday.
I would be interested in hearing his opinion. He should be absolutely ashamed of himself.
But if the Prime Minister was contrite, if he was browbeaten after the Supreme Court ruled that his suspension of Parliament was unlawful, handing him another humiliating defeat, he didn't show it. In fact, Boris Johnson was defiant. He even dared the opposition to call a vote of no confidence on him and the minority government that he leads.
So if in fact the party opposite does not have confidence in the government, they will have a chance to prove it. They have until the House rises. Let them listen. I think they should listen to this, Mr. Speaker. They have until the House rises today to table a motion of no confidence in the government. Come on then. And we can have that vote tomorrow.
But that is a no-go for opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn, who kindly declined the offer and stuck to his guns. That is, yes to an election, to reshuffling the political deck and putting it to voters, but only after an extension to the Brexit deadline has been secured.
He says he wants a general election. I want a general election. It's very simple. If you want an election, if he wants an election, get an extension and let's have an election.
So here we are in London, once again, stuck. The Prime Minister wants an election but can't make it happen. The opposition says it wants one too, but not now. And in a sign that the Prime Minister isn't done tussling with lawmakers, we're learning the government intends to try once again to adjourn Parliament. This time, though, just for a few days during the Conservative Party conference that begins Sunday. This with less than 5 weeks before the current Brexit deadline of October 31st. In the words of my esteemed colleagues Richard Quest and Bianca Nobilo, it would take a chess master to know what happens next. Cyril Vanier, London.
Welcome back to a special edition of The Lead, the White House in crisis. Another remarkable day on Capitol Hill. Today, the acting director of national intelligence testified about the whistleblower complaint, outlining concerns about President Trump's apparent efforts to try to use a foreign power to damage a political rival. Joining me now to talk about it is James Clapper, the former director of national intelligence under President Obama. General Clapper, thanks so much for joining us, as always. First of all, I just want to start by asking you your thoughts about the whistleblower complaint, which was unclassified and released today.
Right. Well, first of all, I'd seen a lot of whistleblower complaints during the time I was DNI, and this had to be the best composed, best written, best documented such complaint I've ever seen. Obviously done by a seasoned, mature, capable intelligence professional, written like an intelligence document. And it's very clear. He points out what he knows and what he doesn't know, he or she, whoever it is. So I thought it was very compelling.
Have you ever heard before of an American president, you were in the government long before you worked for President Obama, of an American president pushing a foreign government to dig up dirt to investigate a political rival? Is that something you've ever heard of before?
No, and in the two positions that I occupied, the last two for 10 years, as Undersecretary in the Pentagon for Intelligence in the Pentagon, and then as DNI for 6.5 years, I certainly never witnessed anything like that. I can't speak to previous administrations I served in over my 50 years in intelligence, but I just wasn't in a position to observe that.
And what do you make of the White House officials, according to the whistleblower, apparently realizing how damaging this phone call was and putting the transcript in this very secure server only used for top secret information among the national security officials?
Well, on its face, it's not improper or illegal to place, to have material of a lower classification placed in a file or on a network that has the capacity for a higher classification. The issue here is, of course, motive or intent, where they're trying to restrict this because of embarrassment or worse, wrongdoing, which seems to be the case here.
CNN has learned that earlier today, President Trump told some people at the United States mission to the UN that he wants to know who in the administration cooperated with the whistleblower, saying that those people are close to a spy, and saying that they were dealt with differently in the old days, an apparent allusion to execution.
Execution, right.
Yeah. Is that witness intimidation? Is that, I mean, what do you think of it?
At a minimum, it is witness retaliation. It's actually, certainly, it conflicts with the spirit of the Intelligence Community Whistleblower Protection Act, because that's what is, one of the purposes is to insulate complainants from retaliation. So clearly this is retaliation threatened in the worst way. And what's really bad about it is that this is going to have a very chilling effect on any other potential whistleblowers if this is going to be the result, and a threat like that from no less than the president.
The acting director of national intelligence, that's the job that you had, except you were confirmed director of national intelligence. The acting director, Joe McGuire, went before the House Intelligence Committee today, and he got some tough questions about how come when he got this complaint, right, which mentions in the first paragraph President Trump and Attorney General Barr, he went to places where they worked, the White House and the Department of Justice. His answer was this was an unprecedented situation, right, and he didn't know what else to do. What did you think of that?
Well, first, I thought Joe McGuire did a masterful job in a very, very difficult circumstance. And he's been the acting DNI for, what, 6 weeks? And he was in a very tough place, starting, and there are a couple of reasons for this. One is the ambiguity of the law itself, the Intelligence Community Whistleblower Protection Act, which is silent, not surprisingly, on the subject. What happens when the objective of the complaint is the President of the United States? It doesn't treat that. So I'm sure he had a lot of discussions with his general counsel, and I think he did the correct thing institutionally, which is to consult, or perhaps his general counsel did, with the White House counsel's office and or the Office of Legal Counsel in the Department of Justice, which is the senior level authority, the senior voice for legal issues in the executive branch. That was the right thing to do institutionally. Politically, was it the right thing to do? To consult with the target of the complaint. And I hope, and I'm sure he did, have a discussion about the pros and cons of doing that with his general counsel. Now, having said that, like many other controversial decisions that figures of late have made, like Jim Comey and now Joe McGuire, I think he did it for absolutely what he thought were the right reasons. He's trying to thread a very tough needle there, a very small needle, between complying with the law, which he clearly understands and supports, and at the same time not running too far afoul of the White House. And I think that's the line he was trying to traverse.
General Clapper, always good to see you. Thank you so much for being here.